a man you deeply care about holds you close. In that most vulnerable moment, something happens, not just physical, but emotional. It's a release that's not only about the body, but about trust, intimacy, and the feeling of being truly connected. Now, here's the truth most people never talk about. When a man shares himself with you in this way, it's not just biology, it's psychology, it's vulnerability, it's how he expresses closeness, love, safety, and even fear. But too often we simplify it. We say, oh, men only want one thing. That's not true. In fact, for many men, act of release, especially inside someone they trust, isn't just about desire. It's about belonging. It's about acceptance. And it reveals layers of emotion that men rarely get the chance to put into words. So in today's conversation, I want to break it down for you. We'll talk about 5 powerful feelings men often experience when they release inside you, feelings they don't always say out loud, but that shape the way they love, connect, and see the relationship. When a man releases inside you, one of the most powerful emotions he feels, but rarely ever says out loud, is trust. Think about it. In almost every area of life, men are taught to be careful, to be guarded, to hold back. Society tells them to be strong, to protect, to stay in control. But in this intimate moment, something shifts. He allows himself to let go, to be vulnerable, and to place his faith in you. That act alone reveals an enormous level of emotional security. For many men, this isn't just about physical satisfaction, it's about safety. It's about knowing he can give himself fully without fear of being judged, rejected, or taken for granted. When he reaches that point, it's like he's saying, without words, I trust you with all of me, my body, my emotions, even my future. Now, here's where it gets even deeper. Trust in this context isn't one-sided. Men feel it most strongly when they sense that you also trust them. When you're relaxed, when you allow him to be close, when you share in that vulnerability, it tells him, you are safe with me too. And this mutual trust becomes the foundation of emotional intimacy. Let's be honest, there's risk involved in intimacy. For men, the risk isn't just physical, it's emotional. Releasing inside a woman carries layers of meaning. Will she see me differently after this? Does she understand what this means to me? Will she still want me, or will she pull away? Those thoughts, even if unspoken, linger in the background. So when a man chooses to let go, he's making a silent decision. I trust her enough to take that risk. This is why some men don't easily allow themselves to be this vulnerable. If he's unsure about the relationship, if he doesn't feel safe emotionally, he may hold back, not just physically, but in the way he connects with you. On the other hand, when he feels deep trust, that moment becomes a reflection of his commitment, his desire for closeness, and his comfort in being fully himself around you. And let me say this, for many women, it's easy to underestimate just how meaningful this is, because society often paints men as detached, unemotional, or only driven by physical desire. People forget that for a man to let go in this way is, in fact, one of the most vulnerable and trusting choices he makes. So when it happens, recognize it for what it is, a sign that he feels safe with you, that he doesn't just see you as someone to share pleasure with, but as someone he can give himself to without fear. It's a silent but powerful statement of trust, and trust, once built, becomes the bedrock of love. It's what allows relationships to deepen beyond surface attraction. It's what makes a man not just stay, but invest, commit, and cherish the connection. So the next time you wonder what's really going on in his heart during that moment, remember this more than anything else. He's feeling trust, a trust that says, I can be fully me with you. And I know you'll hold me with care. If there's one thing men are rarely given permission to show, it's vulnerability. From the time they're young, most men are told things like, be strong, don't cry, don't show weakness. And so they grow up learning to build walls of strength, walls of control, walls of composure. But here's the truth, intimacy has a way of breaking down those walls in an instant. When a man reaches that moment of release, he's no longer the one in control. His guard is down. His body, his breath, his emotions, they all open up in ways he can't fully manage. And for many men, that's both terrifying and beautiful. Think about it. In everyday life, he might project confidence. He might be the decision maker, the problem solver, the one people rely on. But in this private moment, he steps out of that role. He's no longer the strong one. Instead, he's human, unfiltered, raw, and vulnerable. And here's what makes this so powerful in that moment. He's not worried about appearing perfect. He's not concerned about holding up an image. He's simply himself. That kind of vulnerability, though brief, carries deep emotional weight. Now, some men struggle with this. They may even feel uncomfortable after intimacy, pulling away or becoming distant. Not because they don't care, but because vulnerability is unfamiliar territory. They've spent years avoiding it, and suddenly, in one instant, it shows up without warning. It can feel like exposure, almost like standing in a spotlight with nowhere to hide. But when a man feels safe with you, that vulnerability transforms. Instead of shame, he feels relief. Instead of weakness, he feels closeness. He realizes he doesn't have to pretend, doesn't have to carry the armor, doesn't have to be on all the time. And that realization is incredibly freeing. You see, many women underestimate how exhausting it is for men to constantly perform strength. Society rarely tells men it's okay to lean on someone. It's okay to be soft. It's okay to not have all the answers. But in the right relationship, intimacy becomes the one space where he is allowed to let go, where he can be vulnerable without judgment. That's why when a man opens up in this way, it often deepens his feelings for the woman he's with, because he's experienced something rare, the safety of being vulnerable without consequence. It creates a bond that's not just physical, it's emotional. He begins to associate you with peace, acceptance, and the freedom to be his truest self. Here's something important to remember: vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, it's one of the strongest things a person can show. And for a man who has been conditioned his whole life to hide it, those moments of openness are often the most authentic expressions of himself. So when a man lets himself be vulnerable with you, when he drops the armor and simply is, don't underestimate what that means. It's not just about physical closeness. It's about him saying, I trust you with the parts of me no one else gets to see. That's not weakness, that's intimacy. And in many ways, it's the real foundation of love. One of the most overlooked truths about intimacy is this: for many men, releasing inside a woman isn't simply about pleasure, it's about connection. It's about creating a bond that goes beyond words, a closeness that can't be explained by physical attraction alone. Here's why this matters. In day-to-day life, men often struggle to express emotions. They may not always say, I love you, or I need you. Sometimes they don't even know how to put those feelings into language. But in intimacy, especially in that most vulnerable moment, they express love and connection in a different way. The act itself becomes their unspoken language. Think of it this way: when a man allows himself to release with you, what he's really saying is, this moment is ours. I'm sharing the most private part of me with you. That's not just physical, it's emotional. He's not just sharing his body, he's sharing his heart. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Studies in psychology often talk about the hormone oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone. While it's true that women tend to feel a surge of oxytocin after intimacy, many people forget that men experience it too. And this hormone doesn't just create relaxation, it deepens feelings of attachment. It makes him feel closer to you, safer with you, and more emotionally invested in you. This is why intimacy can sometimes feel like a turning point in a relationship. Before, he may have been enjoying the fun, the excitement, the chemistry, but after he shares himself in that way, he begins to feel a stronger emotional bond. The relationship stops being casual. It begins to feel personal. For many men, that bond also brings a surprising sense of peace. The world outside may be chaotic. Work may be stressful. Life may demand constant performance. But in your arms, in that shared closeness, he experiences something rare, a moment of belonging. It's as if he's saying, right here with you, I feel at home, and this bonding has long-term effects. When a man consistently feels emotionally connected through intimacy, it changes the way he views the relationship. He doesn't just see you as his partner in attraction, he sees you as his partner in life. He begins to value not just the passion, but the comfort, the trust, and the companionship you provide. Now, let's be honest, not every man is in tune with this. Some men, especially if they're emotionally unavailable or not ready for commitment, might try to ignore or suppress these feelings of bonding. They may act like it's just physical, but here's the secret: even if he tries to deny it, his body and mind still register that sense of connection. He might fight it, but it's there. That's why it's so important to recognize intimacy for what it truly is, not just a physical act, but an emotional exchange. Because whether he admits it or not, each time a man shares himself with you in that way, he's creating a deeper emotional tie. So when you ask, what does he really feel in that moment? Understand this: he's feeling closeness, he's feeling belonging, he's feeling that you and he are not just two people, but one bond. And even if he doesn't say it out loud, his actions are speaking volumes. I feel more connected to you than ever before. That's not just intimacy. That's love in its quietest, most powerful form. Up until now, we've talked about the trust, the vulnerability, and the connection that a man feels in that intimate moment. But there's another layer that often gets overlooked, the sense of responsibility that comes with it. Here's the truth most men won't say out loud. When a man releases inside you, he doesn't just feel pleasure or closeness, he also feels the weight of what that means. Even if he doesn't put it into words, part of his mind is quietly whispering, this matters, this could change things. That's where the feeling of fear enters the picture. Not fear in a negative sense, but fear in the sense of awareness, fear of what it means for the relationship, fear of whether you'll see it as intimacy or as carelessness, fear of whether he's giving enough, loving enough, being enough. And for many men, that fear is balanced by something equally powerful, care. Because the moment he shares himself in that way, he's not just thinking about his own feelings, he's thinking about yours. Did you feel safe? Did you feel loved? Did you feel valued? These are questions he may never ask out loud, but they live in his heart. Here's what's fascinating. Men often show love less through words and more through responsibility. In daily life, that looks like providing, protecting, making sure you're okay. But in intimacy, that sense of responsibility often shows up right after release. He may hold you tighter, kiss your forehead, or simply look at you with a quiet seriousness. These are his ways of saying, I care about what happens next. I care about how you feel. Of course, not every man processes it the same way. Some may avoid talking about responsibility because it scares them. Others lean into it, seeing that moment as a reminder that intimacy is not casual, it's meaningful. But either way, the awareness is there because deep down men know this act carries weight. And here's something most women don't realize. For men who genuinely love and respect their partner, this responsibility doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like an honor. It feels like a way of saying, I'm not just here for the pleasure, I'm here for the aftermath, for the care, for the bond that follows. This is why after intimacy, a man's actions are often more revealing than his words. If he pulls you closer, if he checks in on you, if he stays rather than rushing off, it's his way of showing that he understands the responsibility attached to the connection you just shared. Now, does this mean every man gets it right? No. Some men mishandle it. Some avoid the emotional weight. But the men who truly value the relationship will always feel this mixture of fear, responsibility, and care. And in many cases, that's when they grow, not just as lovers, but as partners. So the next time you wonder what's really happening inside his heart in that moment, know this, he's not only feeling closeness, he's also feeling the weight of responsibility. He may not always say it. He may not always know how to show it. Yeah. But deep down, there's a voice inside him that says, she trusted me. I need to honor that trust. I need to care for her. And that voice, more than anything, is what separates fleeting intimacy from lasting love. When words fall short, love often finds other ways to speak. And for many men, releasing inside a woman they truly care about is one of those silent expressions of love. Now, let me be clear, this isn't about every man or every situation, but for a man who is invested in you, who values you, who feels safe with you, that moment carries meaning that goes far beyond physical desire. It becomes his way of saying, I belong to you. I trust you. I'm giving all of myself to you, not just in body, but in heart. This is powerful because men are not always raised in a culture that encourages them to openly express emotions. Many men don't grow up learning how to put feelings into words. They aren't taught to write heartfelt letters or to share long, vulnerable conversations about love. For some, the language of feelings is foreign, even intimidating, but intimacy, that becomes their dictionary, their translator, their way of communicating something their mouths may never fully say. So in that deeply personal moment when he releases inside you, it is not always just a physical act. It's an emotional declaration. It is often an unspoken yet very real way of saying, I love you. I trust you. I want you. I choose you. What's beautiful is that these expressions of love are rarely loud or dramatic. They are quiet, gentle, subtle. Sometimes it's the way he looks at you afterwards, eyes softened with a kind of peace that says, I'm home. Sometimes it's the way he holds you closer instead of pulling away, like he wants to stay in that moment for as long as possible. Sometimes it's simply the way he falls asleep next to you, completely at ease, knowing he's safe in your presence. These moments are his love letters written without a pen. his vows spoken without words, his commitment shown without needing to announce it. And for women who know how to recognize them, these silent gestures can be more powerful than the words "I love you" ever could be. The challenge, of course, is that many women are conditioned to look for verbal reassurance. They want to hear the words, and that's completely valid. Words matter. But sometimes focusing only on what is said makes us miss what is shown. And for men, actions often carry more emotional weight than language. For him, the release isn't an ending, it's a beginning. It's not just the climax of a physical experience, it's the start of a deeper emotional bond. A moment that whispers, "I'm not going anywhere. This isn't casual for me. This is real." Now, let's be honest. This doesn't mean that intimacy is the only way men express love. Of course not. A man who truly cares for you should show that through his consistency, his respect, his willingness to invest in the relationship day after day. But it does mean that for many men, this particular act represents one of the purest forms of surrender. Think about it, men are often trained to value control, strength, and yet in intimacy, especially in moments like these, they let go completely. No performance, no walls, no mask, just raw surrender. And that surrender is, in its own way, one of the most profound forms of love. Here's the beautiful shift that happens when you understand this. You stop seeing intimacy as a mere physical exchange. You start recognizing it as an emotional dialogue, a language of the heart, and that awareness changes everything. It allows you to better understand when his actions are shallow and when they're sincere. It helps you separate a man who is there only for pleasure from a man who is there because he deeply values you. And if you find yourself with a man who does love you deeply, who respects you, who cares for you, who cherishes your trust, then don't overlook these silent expressions. Don't dismiss them because they don't come packaged in the form of words. Because in his own way, in his own language, he's telling you everything you've ever wanted to hear. When he chooses to give all of himself in that moment, he's not just sharing his body, he's sharing his heart. And for men, that is one of the bravest and most vulnerable acts they can perform. So here's what I want you to do. The next time you share that level of closeness with your partner, don't just listen to what he says. Watch what he shows. Pay attention to the way he touches you afterwards, the way he holds you, the way he lingers instead of pulling away. Notice whether his presence stays strong after the moment has passed. Because those little actions, they are his love letters. They are his commitment. They are his way of saying, "You matter to me." And if this conversation has opened your eyes to a deeper side of intimacy, one that goes beyond the physical into the emotional and spiritual, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because these conversations are how we create better relationships, stronger bonds, and more lasting love. And of course, if you want more insights into the way men think, feel, and love, hit that subscribe button. This is where we break down the truths most people never talk about, the truths that can change the way you see love forever. Remember, this love isn't always spoken. Sometimes it's felt in silence, sometimes it's written in presence, and sometimes it's expressed in moments where words simply aren't enough. And when a man gives himself to you in that way, know this, it's not just his body speaking, it's his heart, his trust, and his love speaking louder than his voice ever could.